Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. Happy New Year. We are back in the studio, took that week off, took the holiday to recharge, and we are still, it's New Year, but we got the same sponsor, and we are brought to you by Props.Cash. Props.Cash is the absolute best in the business for looking at player props. It's a must-use tool. It's something that I use every single day when I'm capping. They have the hit rate charts. You can move the line around. You can see how a player's done with somebody, without somebody, how they perform in a particular situation, what the matchup is, like how the matchup is favorable for them or not favorable for them. And Props.Cash even has their own projections. So you can kind of take a look at what lines you're getting and then what the projection is that they have through their model. So it's just another tool that you can use to bolster your sports betting and your player prop betting. You can get that for 25% off your first month with code DELARA25. And what better way to start the year with another tool with Props.Cash. So join in there. It's a great tool, and we're very excited for this year. Producer Corey, how you doing? How do you feel in the new year? Do you feel any older, any wiser? Do you have resolutions? I mean, we could talk about those at the end, I guess.
I definitely don't feel any wiser. Definitely feel a little older. I've now been biting the same spot on my lip for a week, and it's been driving me out of my mind.
That's a disaster.
So I'm really trying to get that under control. I did it again today. I was in training all day and fucking tasted blood in my mouth again. I was like, you son of a bitch, you did it again.
God damn it.
The story of the fat lip will not go away. I just keep biting it.
New Year, same lip. What are you going to do? You know?
I need to shut my mouth and maybe it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean,
not today though.
Not today. We need you today. So
yeah,
not today.
I won't be doing that today.
Today's not the day.
My New Year's resolution is to drive less than 10,000 miles on my leased car this year.
That's a good resolution because, like, otherwise you kind of wind up in that situation where you're like, oh, I might need to buy this out. So
I am heading straight for that situation. I'm going to see if I can get it under control, but here we go.
Understandable. All right. Well, let's dive in. We obviously had the biggest news of the week and the weekend really was the OG Anunoby trade, which sent OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn to the New York Knicks in exchange for Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and a future second-round pick, which is courtesy of the Detroit Pistons. Realistically, that pick, Detroit's so bad, it's coming in this year. It's realistically like an extra first-round pick because it's coming in at that end of the or at the beginning of the second round. So definitely notable. It's a good second-round pick to be acquiring, but still, I think this trade overall was very interesting. I know a lot of people were talking. They're saying like, "Oh, look, the Raptors fleeced the Knicks." Blah blah blah. I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm obviously a little bit biased. When I heard Emmanuel Quickley got traded, I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, we traded Emmanuel Quickley, and I wanted to die. But then, like, I kind of thought about it a little bit more, and I think that the big thing here is with the way the New York Knicks are currently constructed, you obviously have Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, big, dominant players where not Brunson's not big, but dominant players that demand the ball right now. And there just wasn't enough room really in the rotation for whatever reason to include Emmanuel Quickley into the starting rotation, even though a lot of the advanced analytics pointed to it being favorable. Us as fans seem to like Emmanuel Quickley. Like we all thought that this was a great scenario. We thought that he was a great player, and we were shocked we didn't sign him last season in the offseason. And then coming into this year, we weren't able to complete any type of extension, like what have you. The thing is, and this is the thing that I was thinking about more, the Knicks made this trade. You obviously acquire OG Anunoby, who is one of the premier wing defensive players in the NBA that can legitimately guard positions 1 through 5. And I think that that's very important to consider. It's a little bit of an interesting scenario because I think of OG Anunoby as the player, like the last player that a contending team gets to their team via trade to kind of push them over the edge. Like if Boston got him, if Denver got him, if the Bucks got him, like a team like that, right? Or even like Philadelphia, like if they got him, I think that really changes the dynamics of like just how good that team is, and it really puts them into that upper echelon. Whereas for the Knicks, I still have questions about some of like the premier talent. Like I wonder if this team really has enough juice still to make a run, or if the run is really more of one of those like Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young type of deals where you make the conference finals and then like that's what you got. So I'm not sure. It feels to me that the Knicks still have another move up their sleeve. They were able to keep all of their first round draft picks that they kind of had in their stash, and I thought that was critically important. But the thing from like a roster building perspective that I thought was interesting, right? The Knicks, even though we all liked Emmanuel Quickly, the Knicks obviously did not value Emmanuel Quickly as much as the rest of like the viewing public, right? They didn't pay him in the offseason. They were going to have to overpay him because it was restricted free agency realistically to back up Jalen Brunson if they wanted to retain him, which I think they would. And they really weren't going to start him alongside of Brunson. So I think that given that circumstance, they took a guy that they viewed as like a sixth man, essentially, another guy in RJ Barrett who at least we can stop pretending that he's the future of the franchise, right? Like, but Barrett, he's very inefficient. To me, I think he just never seemed to get there. He was never really efficient. And his highs to me seemed more like outliers than flashes of potential. So I know he grew up a Raptors fan. He grew up in Canada. He played for Team Canada. I hope that this works out for his career. I think that it's one of those things where this could be a win-win trade for both scenarios. But the Knicks were able to get off of that contract, the RJ Barrett contract, which he's owed $27 million this year and like moving forward with the extension that he signed. Emmanuel Quickly is probably going to get paid again. You're probably paying him another like 25, 26, $27 million a year at the way the restricted free agent deal might have come in. So you're looking at a scenario where a combined money was going to be maybe like 55 to 60 million dollars per year for those two players who, when you look at what the Knicks are trying to do and the way the Knicks are evaluating them, like they're not that good. Like they're not in the they're not. That's what the Knicks are saying. They're like, this is our position. We don't think that they're necessarily the future, right? Even though we're paying them as if they are. Then you go and you get a guy like OG Anunoby, who is highly sought after by a million teams. He's repped by Leon Rose's son, Sam Rose. So the Knicks president of basketball operations, his son is OG Anunoby's agent. He's going to stay in New York. Like like people can say like whatever they want. Like, oh, like we don't know. He's going to hit free agency. He's going to opt out, whatever. The Knicks don't make this move if they don't have some like gentleman's kind of agreement, like head nod to Daryl Morey and James Harden right there. But they don't make this move if they don't think that they can retain OG Anunoby moving forward. So like the question is, if you're a Knicks fan or if you're the New York Knicks brass, you're basically saying, would we rather overpay slightly for OG Anunoby for like $35 million, maybe $40 million a year, with considering the fact, especially that there's going to be a new TV deal. These contracts are going to get more and more expensive. Would we rather overpay for that, where we're getting a guy that we really, really want, that kind of we feel like fits into our team? Or would we rather overpay two guys that we don't really feel that strongly about, and we know that there's not really a huge market for RJ Barrett? So they were able to get off of the RJ Barrett contract, move Emmanuel Quickly, who's a guy that they valued as less than what everybody else did. So their evaluation in like the trade machine is like he wasn't even in like the same tier really. And you get a guy like OG Anunoby, you get another like big in Precious Achiuwa to kind of help stem the tide without Mitchell Robinson, and you get another guy like Malachi Flynn, kind of a throw-in, but he still can create some offense. So I think the Knicks still have some other moves to make. The Raptors obviously have some moves to make as well. We'll see how long Pascal Siakam winds up being on the Raptors. It sounds like he's not going to sign any extensions if he gets traded, and he wants to hit free agency. So it really sounds like they're not going to be able to get very much for him no matter what they do. But from an actionable perspective, in the first game that OG Anunoby played was against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Looked great, obviously. One of the things that I had talked about in my player props forecast for the Action Network was that I thought I thought that he was going to be a really good 3-point shooter for the Knicks. And part of why I like that is he shoots like 45% from the corner. And in his first game, he made 3 threes on 6 attempts, mostly from the corner. And the other thing that we saw was Jalen Brunson's uptick in assists. I think that both of these things should tie relatively hand in hand with each other. For this game coming up, they play the Bulls. The Bulls allow a ton of threes. I think it's a great spot for Anunoby. I'm curious to see where the line comes in, because if they change the 2.5 to a little bit more of like instead of like plus 190, which is where we got it 2 days ago, if they make it closer to like plus 120, I might pivot to points. And in particular, the reason I like that is because he was such an effective slasher and such an effective like mover in space, like off-ball mover. I think that might be the way to look at it. Alternatively, Jalen Brunson's assist rate should really skyrocket. He had his season high in assists. He had 14 assists against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think, honestly, he's not passing to RJ Barrett, just throwing up bricks. So it's particularly interesting. Those are some of the actionable things for the Knicks. I think for the Raptors, the way we can look at this is for Emmanuel quickly entered the starting lineup. He started in his first game. What I thought was interesting, though, was his lines were a little lower than I thought. They were like 14.5 points, 15.5 points, 2.5, 3.5 assists, rebounds. He kind of sat there actually in that first game. But I think that traditionally his per 36 minute stats are much better. 22.5 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists. And when he was a starter last year, he averaged 22.6 points, 5.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists in 38 minutes. So I think that points prop or like a PRA is going to be something that's useful. It kind of came out a little bit too late in that first game where he, in his first start, his debut with the team. So I didn't want to play it right then, but it's definitely an angle that I'm looking for moving forward in order to try to back them and see, kind of what the scenario is for them. So it's definitely something that I'm looking at. And I think it's definitely something that's going to be actionable potentially against the Memphis Grizzlies, who have actually been relatively weak against guards. And we'll have to see kind of how that shakes out. It's a back-to-back for Memphis. The other thing that's notable, though, and somebody asked me to talk about this, and then I'm going to get into some of the best bets for the slate. But somebody in my mentions asked about the Sixth Man of the Year award, and I thought that was a particularly interesting question. Especially we can take a look at some of these odds too, right? So when we're looking at the odds for Sixth Man of the Year, I think it's interesting, especially because Emmanuel quickly was in the running for this award. And now he might just be playing as a starter. So he's not coming off the bench anymore. And between him, we saw that change. We also saw Chris Paul is entering the starting lineup. Austin Reeves looks like he is not entering the starting lineup despite the D'Angelo Russell injury per Coach Ham. So I think that's particularly notable. When we look at these guys' stats, let's run down the odds first. Austin Reeves plus 250, Tim Hardaway Jr. plus 300, Bogdanovich plus 750-ish, plus 600 some places, Cole Anthony plus 650 to 800, Malik Monk 8-1. Those are some of the spots that I'm looking at, right? When we look at their stats over the course of the season, they're all Tim Hardaway Jr., Bogdanovich averaging 17.5 points per game. Malik Monk, 14.5. Cole Anthony, 4.3. Austin Reeves, 15.1. Reeves is leading the pack in rebounds. He's tied with Cole Anthony at 4.4. And then for assists, Malik Monk actually is 5.2, then Reeves at 4.9. So this becomes a question of what do you think of these teams? What do you like? How do you value their roles? Traditionally, we've seen a lot of Sixth Man of the Year awards go to people that score in bunches and that can come off the bench and be a microwave type of scorer. So all of these guys kind of fit that role. But I think that from a standings perspective, right? When we look at where all of these teams are sitting, the Magic are the best position. The Magic are in 4th in the East compared to the Kings are 5th in the West. The Lakers are 10th. The Mavericks are 7th. So these are some of the things to, and the Hawks stink. The Hawks are the the Hawks are 11th in the East. So from a value perspective, I think it's hard to bet into this market right now just because it seems like there might be some moves. I'm a little concerned about Bogdanovich specifically because I think Atlanta's bad and that they might move him to a contender, like to a real contender. But I don't know then if he enters the starting lineup or if he just continues to come off the bench. If he continues to come off the bench, the other concern then is what kind of pace do they play at? What minutes is he going to see? Is he going to see similar minutes, playing almost 30 minutes a game? That's a little bit of my concern. Um, Austin Reeves seems to have the momentum, right? Like he is somebody that people want to bet on. He's popular. He plays for the Lakers, like all those things. But I'm not betting a guy at plus 250 right now in what I think is a very coin flippy type of race. Cole Anthony to me is an interesting play, but I still think that the Magic are like, I don't know if people buy it. And then to me, that means like they're not getting enough airtime. They're not getting enough screen time. Like they're still talking about Franz Wagner as a role player, not like an all-star. Like that's how like a lot of people recognize it. Like they don't even think about Franz Wagner as good as he is as that. So that's my concern there. I think that Bogdanovich is an interesting bet. I think that at the numbers that you can find them at, there's like some plus 750s out there. I think that that's definitely the way to go. My app is popping like a 25-1 on Caesars, but I don't think that that's right. I think that must have been the beginning of the season number. So I think the best number that I can find is a 750 right now at FanDuel. I think it's worth a little bit of a sprinkle if you haven't entered the market yet at all. If you I just don't really like six man of the year too much because of the potential. Like a lot of times these guys, they're so good and then they wind up playing, like they wind up starting. So that's my concern. I think that Reeves is apparently like a very stable bench presence. That's how they want to use him. They tried to start him and that didn't really work. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it from here. Even looking further down, I think that like Derek White's interesting, 30-1. I just don't think enough of these other guys are playing enough minutes off the bench to really be worth a real look. I'm concerned about, I think Mathurin and Hield kind of eat into each other. Bobby Portis is interesting at 30-1, but I don't think I'd bet it. And that's really what we're looking at. Naz Reid is phenomenal, 30-1 as well, but I just don't see these guys taking that much action. I don't think they're scoring enough points on a regular basis. So that's my concern with those guys. But now let's quickly look at the Wednesday NBA slate. And look, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers, it seems like they've played a million fucking times so far this season. And one of the things about this matchup is that the Bucks just cannot stop Tyrese Halliburton. The dude's been unbelievable. And what I think is particularly interesting, actually, is that his assists are down. They keep setting his line at 13 and a half assists. He's only cleared it in 1 of 4 games so far, 15 assists in the 12-7 game. He just doesn't hit it. So what I did, and I bet this the other day, I bet over 29 and a half points plus rebounds. And people are like, he doesn't board. Fun fact, he does board against the Milwaukee Bucks. On the season, he only is averaging 7.1 rebounds per game, or rebound chances per game, for 4.2 rebounds per game, right? Against the Bucks, he's averaging 10 rebound chances per game and secures 6.8 rebounds per game. He's gone over this line of 4.5 rebounds in all 4 games against the Bucks, 6, 7, 5, 9. So then, Joe, why are we betting PR instead of rebounds? Because I like PR. He's missed it in 1 game, and that was in a game where he scored 22 points. But so far in this matchup, he scored 29, 27, 22, and 26. The reason I like PR, it got bumped from 29.5 on Monday to now 30.5 for this game. And the reason I like it is that the rebounds, I think, is a very safe floor, but there's potential upside here as well. So what I like is that, like, when we look at his rebound line, and this is some of the thought process that I have with combo props. Uh, like I don't think like I would never expect Halliburton to get like even like the 9 I think is an outlier. Like I think that's a really high number for him. He doesn't really touch triple doubles. He doesn't really get that high, but he's seeing the floor for a ton of minutes. The pace of these games is an absolute blitz, and he's averaging 6.8 rebounds per game. So that it's over what we're looking at here. I have him projected a little bit over the 4.5. And the what it does is it raises the floor for me on the combo, and I think it gives a little bit of like potential to go over what his number is there while still being safe. Like I think he'd get at least 4. Like he might not go over the 4.5, but I think he would get at least 4. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. And then for the points, he started off pretty slow in this last game against Milwaukee, and what happened was he still took 22 shots, and at the end of the game he actually started to go a little bit crazier, and in the second half he scored 18 of his points, and that's what we've actually seen him do. He scored 14, 16, 3, and 18 against Milwaukee so far this season in the second half. What happened was they really just could get anything that he wanted when Dame was defending him, just anything he wanted at all. So I really like him to go over the 30.5 points plus rebounds. I think the line is, just think it's too low again. But I like the potential upside for both of these. Halliburton's too instrumental to the offense to score fewer than like 20 points realistically. And then he also has the potential to have like a high number of points. He could clear this on just points alone, but then he could also help his points floor with that rebound line. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it here. And I like him to go over the 30.5 points plus rebounds. Additionally, I bet Malik Monk last game under 3.5 threes, or not Malik Monk, Malik Beasley rather. And I think that his points prop moved up to 13.5 or 12.5 rather. It's a spot that I'm probably looking to go under on. I think I would even take under 3.5 threes. Look, he got there. He shot 4 of 8 from 3. This is just not a number. They just don't allow that many 3-pointers. That's just not what the Bucks do. They've only allowed him in this so far this season. He's taken 11, 6, 4, 4, and 8, averaging 6.6. He's a great 3-point shooter, but I would bet on under pretty much every time on somebody to shoot like to make less than 4 on 6.6 attempts. Even looking at him over the course of the whole season, he's been a little bit better recently, but he's averaging 3 and he's averaging 6.4 attempts. So this is a spot where Milwaukee or Indiana's defense it's not really conducive to allowing a lot of threes just because of how much of a sieve they are on the interior. So I think that maybe they make some adjustments there. I'm comfortable playing like an under on him, whether it's the threes or the points at 12.5. But I think that under 3.5 threes makes more sense to me. I know that he finished at 12 points in the last game, just because he made 4 threes. So this got bumped to 12.5, but I'm more comfortable. I think the 3.5 is fine. And I'll live and die with the fact that, maybe he doesn't get there because he makes like extra layups or something like that. Additionally, let's look at the rest of the slate, because that's plenty of talk for Bucks Pacers. We've seen that game so many times this season. The Knicks, look, like I said, I like OG Anunoby threes. I talked about Jalen Brunson assists. Those are some looks that I'll probably be looking at. The Thunder are in a bad schedule spot against the Atlanta Hawks. I don't know how they are going to stop Shea. So I might be looking for like a Shea points over or something like that in that Thunder Hawks game. The Thunder -1 just seems like a crazy line, even though they're on the road. I know that it's like a come down spot after a big game against Boston, but it's a bad schedule spot, so that's what's going to keep me away from it. But it's definitely something that I'm curious about. I'm looking at, right. I'm probably going to be backing the Minnesota Timberwolves against the New Orleans Pelicans. Minnesota goes home after that game, after the New Year's Day game in New York. The Pelicans are on the second game of a back-to-back. Looks like everybody is playing for the Pelicans at the time of this recording, except for Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's out. Trey Murphy might play in this game against Minnesota, but bad schedule spot to be having to play back-to-back games and then have to go play against Minnesota the next game. So I'll probably be looking at that. Another spot that I'll probably be looking at is Let me see. I want to see what Anthony Edwards has done against the Pelicans, because I feel like this is a good spot for him. So he has 26 points and then 23 points. Made a lot of threes in one of the games. Might be a spot that might be a tough spot for him. So we'll come back around. We'll see what the injury report kind of looks like. But it was definitely a spot that I was eyeing and was, kind of curious about there. The Pistons are playing the Jazz. Not great for them. I'm definitely interested in this Clippers-Suns game. The Clippers, looks like Kawhi Leonard should play, right? And the reason I think that's they've been incredible whenever Kawhi Leonard plays. And part of what I like about this matchup for them is, look, the spread is sitting at about like 2.5, 3.5. Kevin Durant just got rolled out. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. The Clippers are just wings on wings on wings on wings on wings. And I love the spot. I think that this is a very tough matchup for a guy like Booker. I think it's a very tough matchup for even a guy like Bradley Beal. So even though the Clippers are on the road against the Suns, without Kevin Durant was kind of the guy where it could kind of break the Clippers defense. It's a tougher matchup for Kawhi Leonard, I think, just based on the fact that he has to still defend Durant on all three levels. Now you can kind of throw Kawhi and Paul George and like a couple more looks at like Beal, at Booker. Very tough spot for me to back the Suns. I like the Clippers in this spot immensely. I really like the Clippers. Another interesting schedule spot is the Orlando Magic and the Kings. The Magic are plus 4.5 point dogs against the Kings on the road. Both teams are actually on a back-to-back. And both teams are on the West Coast. The Kings are playing the Spurs tonight. No, they're not. That's a lie. The Kings are playing. My brain is breaking. The Kings are playing the Hornets, and the Magic are playing the Warriors. So much tougher matchup for one of these teams than the other. The thing that's particularly interesting, though, is the Magic are 12th in adjusted net, plus 1.4, compared to the Kings at plus 0.0. They've been a lot better with De'Aaron Fox, but I think that this is potentially a very tough matchup. It's a clash of styles, right? The Magic have the 24th ranked adjusted offense. Adjusted defense, they're second, whereas the Kings are 10th in adjusted offense, 21st in adjusted defense. I lean Orlando, but I do struggle with the fact that they're on the road, West Coast, late games, back-to-back. I think it's a very tough schedule spot for them. So I lean the Magic, but I think I'm going to stay away from this game specifically because of that. One game that I think is particularly interesting, the Heat are plus 6.5 on the road in LA against the Los Angeles Lakers. Part of why I think this is such a fascinating line, right, is Jimmy Butler won't play. Caleb Martin probably is not going to play. Josh Richardson, questionable. Haywood Highsmith in concussion protocol. Not great, right? When we look at the Lakers, D'Angelo Russell, we'll see if he plays. He's day-to-day right now. Cam Reddish, groin, is out. Rui Hachimura suffered an injury against the Pelicans on Sunday. Didn't come back to the game, so also day-to-day. We'll see what these lineups kind of look like, but it's a particularly interesting matchup because I think that Miami's been a little bit underrated of late. And a lot of that has to do with Tyler Hero being back, Jaime Jaquez playing really, really well. And those, like, it kind of makes you want to back Miami here on the road. They always seem to play particularly well. One player that I think is going to have a tougher matchup is obviously Anthony Davis. He's got to line up against Bam Adebayo. We'll see where this points line comes in at, but he's only averaging 27.8 points only, right? But he's got a couple outliers. He had a 45-point game and a 41-point game against Bam when he was back in with the Pelicans. But since he's joined the Lakers, he's got a 26-point game, a 33, a 24, and then like a really odd 9-point game. So not the best line for him, really. so far throughout his career against Adebayo. And then Bam, on the other hand, has been a weapon defensively. And he actually has had 12, 10, and 19 rebounds against in head-to-head matchups over the last three with Anthony Davis. But they really haven't played too much over the past couple of years. Two matchups in 2019, one in 2021, and one in 2023. So obviously they had the playoffs, and the bubble finals, but I'm not including that. Different just set of circumstances there, especially in regards to the minutes, the rotations, and even like who the players are on the teams, right? So those are just a couple of the things that I'm looking at for this NBA slate. The plays that I definitely have locked in, I've locked in Tyrese Halliburton over 30.5 points and rebounds. I'm going to be looking at Jalen Brunson over on assists. I'm hoping we get a 6.5, but I think we'll probably see a 7.5. And I'll be looking at OG Anunoby threes. I might just make a same game parlay of like 5 assists, 2 threes for OG. That might be a fun one. And that might be the way that I try to tackle that. But with that, producer Corey, how you doing today? What happened?
Sorry about that. I don't know what was wrong with my mic. I'm doing well.
Good. It's good to hear.
How are you?
I'm great. Just living the dream. I can hear my dinner being made right now upstairs, so I'm very excited.
Nice. What's cooking?
We got some leftovers. I made like a Korean ground beef type of thing yesterday. So like making like rice bowls I made kimchi. I made cucumber kimchi yesterday. So it's just fermented for like a day. Yeah, I know. It's pretty nice, pretty healthy. You got to make your own rice too. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
Of course. It's the one trick I've got.
Yeah, I'm like, I got to do it. But do you have any New Year's resolutions for the folks besides a recommendation today?
I mean, my resolution, I already told you, is to keep my total miles under 10,000 this year.
Fair.
So I have the opportunity to hopefully return my lease in 2025, maybe. We'll see.
Sick.
I did a lot of travel that first year. My God.
Yeah, you were moving around. Yeah.
I do have a recommendation. I recommend that you double check every date for the next month when you write it down on something.
Oh, that's a good one. It's
always the worst part.
Yeah.
You know how many times I've written 2023 on day 2? It's day 2. I've written it 10 times at least.
Too many times.
Thank God I've caught myself, but yeah.
The worst is
checking dates. This is the hardest part of the year.
Yeah, the worst is like if you have something that like auto sorts it, so then it like puts it like just somewhere completely different. You're like, fuck, I don't know where it is. Especially if it's not like if you did like today, like it's like 1, 2, 23, you know where to look. But like if it was like out in June, you're like, fuck, I don't know where this went. Like
it's tough, man. I've been writing some stuff up and I'm like, oh shit, February of this year, not last year, dumbass.
Not
Check
ideal.
it again.
Not ideal.
Yeah, no. It's I'm sure it won't be out of my system for at least another 2 weeks of doing this, but just be aware. Be aware. I'm going to get ahead of it. Try to like not create a headache into March, and if I can cut it in, I don't know, mid-February where I'm fully on 2024 when I'm writing the date, I'll consider it a win.
Awesome. So my recommendation for the folks is to definitely get your dinner when it's hot, and then it will also be it's also going to be take a look when you're betting on like anything, right? And just take a look at what the odds are, take a look at what the juice is. It's really important to understand not only like what you're paying, but also like how successful you need to be in order to maintain profitability. So like sometimes like I'll bet on something, and the juice will just get crazy, and I'll say like reduce your risk. That's generally what my recommendation is. Sometimes like it's up to a certain threshold, right? Because if I bet on something at -110 and you bet on it at -140, they're not the same bet. And it's something that is very important to understand just from a hit rate perspective moving forward. So going to recommend that. I'm also going to recommend getting salt for your driveway, for your sidewalk, like whatever you have. This is very homeownery of me, but I got the pet.
Yeah,
safe.
I got a guy for that. It's awesome.
I got the pet safe one for my dog. So it's definitely something that you should have, because I was like, fuck, like I need to have this now. I don't want to have it later. But yeah, so that's what we're recommending for this episode, and I'm gonna recommend as well, like, get yourself some kimchi. It's fucking great. You don't have to make it yourself, because that's
But you
just
should.
yeah, it's a little unhinged for you guys that aren't seeing as widescreen as I am, to make your own. But like,
It's
look,
called cultural appropriation. It's a
yeah,
real
like,
problem,
don't
Joe.
steal my recipes here. But no, but get yourself some kimchi. It's pretty good. It lasts for a really long time. And I would say, because of the way that it lasts, it kind of keeps fermenting, kind of keeps getting better. It is a plus EV decision, just like to get props.cash. Props.cash is a plus EV proposition. It's something that you're going to keep. It's going to last. You're going to come back to it day after day after day after day, just like that kimchi. And you are going to be looking and saying, like, is this a plus move? Like, is this good with rice? Like, is it, don't put it with pasta, maybe some japchae, but it's great with rice. You could do it with a little japchae. Don't put it with your rigatoni. That would be crazy. But look, those are all the things that you got there. Props.cash. They can't help you with the kimchi comparison, but what they can do is they can help you make plus EV bets. They can help make you a better, and a more informed better. And you can get that for your first month for 25% off with code Delera25. And let's continue to cash that.
The year